welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin. Today we're going to be starting a new series, and this is going to be a Get to Know the Booktuber series. I am going to do different books to just kind of so you can get to know me, exactly like the series says. I want to share my reading preferences, books I loved, books I hated, books that made me cry, 5 stars, things that surprised me, all that good stuff. So today for our first installment, I'm going to be doing 5 books that made me cry. I am not the biggest crier when it comes to books. I'm a crier in general, but not a crier when it comes to different books. So I have chosen 5 books that I distinctly remember making me cry. And I don't mean just like, oh, tear. I mean like cry. Because there is a difference. So let's just go ahead and dive in. I have my books sitting here. So let us begin. So the very first book that I have on this list, I read several years ago, but definitely still made an impact, and that is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. This book, it's lovely. It's lovely. I'm sure many of you have either read the book or seen the movie. Oof, but did this book hurt? It hurt so bad. So we are following our main character, Louisa, or Lou. She's just an ordinary girl living a small town life with no big plans. She's got a boyfriend, but he's kind of self-absorbed. She doesn't have big plans for her life, but she needs a job. Enter our second main character, Will, who had huge plans for his life. He was a thrill seeker, adventure seeker, just had everything mapped out. He was in an accident and no longer can live out those plans. So Lou goes to work for his family, not as like a caretaker or nurse in any capacity, but basically to try to lift his spirits, try to get him to see that there is still life worth living, even if it doesn't look the same that he once pictured. And in their relationship, as they grow together, and he has an impact on her, she has an impact on him. He's trying to teach her that, man, like, life is worth living and you have so many opportunities. Like, how could you squander this away? And she's looking at him saying, you still have a life worth living. Don't throw it away. And as they both strive to make each other happy, I think the question that the book really presents to the reader is, and I'll read it straight from the back of the book, but what do you do when making the person you love happy also means breaking your own heart? And that sums up this book perfectly. It's beautiful. It's lovely. One of the only books that I've read that I also very much enjoyed the movie. 5 stars. Loved it. Cried like a baby. Next up, moving over to fantasy. The queen herself, Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the 3rd book in a Court of Thorns and Roses series. Eek! It hurt so good. Now, I can't say too much about why this book made me cry, again, because it is the 3rd book in this series, so I don't want to give too much away, but essentially, if you're unfamiliar with the Court of Thorns and Roses series, ACOTAR, if you will, we are following our main character, Farah. She is the youngest of 3 siblings who their family has fallen into ruin. Her mom has passed away, her dad no longer works, he has a bum leg, so for whatever reason, Farah has taken it upon herself to be the one to provide and take care of her family. So she's the one that goes and handles all the hunting, gathering food, trading, all that good stuff for her family. Now, in the very first book, she does something. She doesn't commit a crime, but she does something, and there are consequences for that action, which results in her having to go north to so she lives in the Mortal Lands, and Perithian is north of the mortal lands, and that is the land of the Fae. Now, the consequence for this thing that she does at the beginning of the very first book in this series, she then has to go to Perithian, to the land of the Fae, in order to atone for her actions. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that takes place. It's great. I love the series itself. I cried in this one. It is not my favorite book of the series. That would be A Court of Mist and Fury, but this book definitely made me cry. So we're following this big epic kind of development of these characters and a war and all this kinds of stuff, looming battle. You know, you get the picture. I just remember thinking I didn't know how I was going to mourn the loss of these characters or character. Again, don't want to give too much away, but definitely cried while reading the ending of this book. I thought it was well written. I thought that, I don't really know how I would have expected it to go differently, but made me cry in a good way. I mean, again, I picked these books because I did cry, but it's not because I cried because I didn't like them, but I cried because I thought that they were very well done, and they made me, they made me feel. They made me feel, and I cried while reading this. And this book made me feel lots of things. A little bit of anger, a little bit of rage, a little bit of sadness, a lot of sadness. And yes, great book. Great book. Next up, we have, keeping with our fantasy theme, we have a book that I recently read and gave 5 stars to, but definitely cried while reading the ending, and that was The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. So this is our 3rd and final book in the Mistborn trilogy. So again, can't really tell you too much about what this was about or specifically why I cried, because that would give too much away. But essentially, the Mistborn trilogy is following our main character, Ven, who is essentially a street rat. She has no family. Her brother has abandoned her. Her parents are gone. Her mother is dead, I believe. Her father is out of the picture. So she is just living amongst thieves, and she's in a crew, and she gets taken on by this new crew of misfits and thieves and characters galore. And basically their leader, his name is Kelsier, and they are trying to overthrow the Lord Ruler. This is just a rebellion story. They're trying to start an uprising, start a rebellion to overthrow the Lord Ruler. So this is the 3rd book. I feel like Ven has very much come into herself. She's made lots of relationships that she even thought were unexpected because she was so used to being alone. So we're following all of those different characters that we've grown to love, and we're following her growing up, a very much coming of age story. She's 15, I believe, 15 or 16 in the first book, and now she's in her 20s, early 20s, and we've been following her and her adventure and her learning. She's learned so much, but she is a Mistborn. And so basically the magic system of the Mistborn trilogy is based off of different metals. So if I was a misting, then I would have certain powers when I ingested a particular type of metal. For example, if I was a misting and I ingested pewter, and that was the metal that I could burn, pewter would enhance my physical ability. So I'd be stronger, I'd be faster, those types of things. Now, a Mistborn is a little bit different because they can consume all of the different metals and they have all of those abilities, where a misting only has one of those. So Ven is a Mistborn. She obviously has no idea that she's a Mistborn at the beginning of this series. So we're following her and we're growing with her and we're learning with her. And yes, so Hero of Ages, it's probably the best wrap up to a trilogy that I have ever read. I don't know how it could have ended any better. Now, I cried, yes. It hurt. And it wasn't even the end of the book, it was the epilogue. So like the last 5 pages of this book, I was sobbing. And I continued to cry even after I finished. I just remember sitting there, bawling my eyes out, reading the last few pages in this epilogue of this book. My fiance looks over and is like, "You good? You good, homie?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "Oh, you didn't like it?" I loved it. I loved it. I cannot recommend this series enough. Literally, read it. Cry with me. This book is phenomenal. Let's move on to the next one. Our next one, I knew the moment that I picked this book up, I was going to cry. I love cats. I love cats. You can see, I love cats. So when I picked up the Traveling Cat Chronicles by Helloooo Pals, I knew I was going to cry, and I was fine with that. So this book, we are following our cat, Nana, and Nana's owner. And Nana's owner's name is Satoru. So Satoru is taking Nana on an adventure, if you will, and they are visiting people from Satoru's past, so old friends, old lovers, I even think. But basically, Satoru is trying to find a new home for Nana. And as they go on this adventure together, Satoru has very high standards for who is going to care for Nana. We do have the perspective of not only the human, Satoru, we not only have his perspective, but we also get a little bit of perspective from Nana the cat. And this book is so heartwarming and cute and amazing and funny. I remember chuckling, but I cried. And you'll probably cry too if you're a cat lover. But this is a phenomenal book. It was a quick read. I believe this is a translated work. Read it. Cry with me. This one will get you right in the feels. But phenomenal book. And then last but not least, I think pretty much all of us who have read this book have cried, so I am not going to stand out in the crowd with this one, but I would be lying if I didn't put it on this list. I'm going to read the back first, and then I'm going to show you. We were like gods at the dawning of the world, and our joy was so bright we could see nothing but the other. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I have this gorgeous special edition of the book, and the inside of the book, the content, is just as beautiful as this stunning cover. This book, we are following our main two characters, obviously Achilles, but also Patroclus, and they fall in love, man. They fall in love. We're following them from the time that they are boys into their adulthood, and this story hurts. It hurts, but it's beautiful. It's beautifully written. It's a lovely, lovely story about these two boys. And really a lot of it is Patroclus kind of being along for Achilles' ride. I mean, we all know the story of Achilles, and he is destined to be a god, just a phenomenal warrior that will conquer many a nations and be the greatest warrior that the world has ever known. And Patroclus is not like that, but he is Achilles' best friend. They become best friends when they are young boys and they grow up together, and Patroclus goes with Achilles when he is sent off to learn how to become a warrior. Patroclus goes with Achilles, and they grow up together, they spend time together, and Patroclus kind of follows him through his life and is there for him. Of course, it's a tragic love story, but this book, I'm going to reread it. I just decided I'm going to reread it, but this book is lovely and beautiful and tragic. Everything you want in a nice retelling. So that is it. Those are my 5 books that made me cry. I absolutely love all of these. I wish I could reread them all for the first time. So yes, that is it. These are the 5 books that have made me cry, ugly cry. I would love to know if you guys have read them. Did they make you cry as well? Am I just a big sap? Are there any books that you would recommend that made you cry that you would like me to throw on a list of books and potentially see if I will cry reading those as well? Let me know in the comments your recommendations. If you've read any of these books, did they make you cry? So that's going to be the first installment of this Get to Know the Booktuber series, the 5 books that made me cry. I am going to continue the series. I don't know what 5 books I'm going to choose next, but there'll be another topic coming. So if you made it this far and you enjoyed the video, please, please, please leave a comment with what you thought if you've read these books. If you haven't read them or want to check them out, give some recommendations. I'm always down for some recs. If you made it this far and you liked the video, please, 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 if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to continue on with the next installment to see the other books in this series, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you know when a new video comes out. Leave me a comment, leave me some recs in the comments. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to chatting with you guys in my next video. Bye.